Andrew, do you want to talk about this challenge that we're doing tonight?
Sure. I'll do it back here though.
Okay.
So back in October, I presented a challenge to the club to turn something out of a 3-inch by 3-inch block. The blocks were provided to us by Goblet LLC. The goal was to start on January 1st, giving you 3 months to turn a 3-by-3 block, and now do a work of art. We've got 17 beautiful pieces up here, and if you didn't get a ticket, let me know. Rebecca's going to be here today doing her interpretation from a 3-by-3 block, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Okay, tonight our feature film for the night is Rebecca DeGroot. She doesn't need a lot of introduction. Most of us have seen her before and welcome her back with open arms. Okay, so Rebecca's going to play with this. This is what everybody had to play with for the 3-by-3 challenge. Do you need anything else?
Maybe not breathe directly into the mic.
Yeah, you can put it away from
Ha
the
ha ha. A mallet.
A mallet. Do we have a mallet?
Or something similar. That works.
We have hammers?
that. Oh God. Oh, that is creepy. Oh my God. So I'm really glad that you guys actually put money into your AV equipment, because I was in Oregon and I was having a great time on my way there. Everything was wonderful. The club that hosted my demo room, I'm not complaining, it was just kind of amusing the whole time. It was in the vendor area. So it was connected to the whole vendor space. And the mic that they had provided was what Debbie had. They gave me a handheld mic to hold during my demo. And I'm like, hold on a second. And they're like, no, but we got you a stand. And I'm like, so how is that going to work exactly? But we got it figured out, and we ordered another microphone, or had somebody go out and get one that was more of this style mic, and eventually we got it sort of working, but if I turned my head just so, it would cut out, so I had to stay very fixed the whole time, and it was overall a really great time. It was just there were a few things that were a little funny, and then the camera kept cutting out, so I doubt that you guys have these same issues because you're professionals. No? Oh. All right, so after looking at all the really nice examples in the back, I might change what I'm going to do. They're all so beautiful. Okay, so I did do an example piece for you guys last night while I was at home during my one day that I wasn't demonstrating this week, on top of teaching and tattooing, and then I forgot it. So, I'm sorry. My life is such a mess right now. If you're not aware, I'm a high school art teacher full-time, but then I also started tattooing about a year ago, so I'm also a tattooer full-time, so I work about 78 hours a week, and then I demo on top of that, so this is my third demo this week. On top of my 78-hour week. But I really enjoy it, so thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So my original plan when I got this, and after talking to Andrew yesterday, was to make a box, and I liked the idea of a box, but then after kind of playing around with the proportions of the wood, I didn't like it as much anymore because I lose so much where I part off the material to get the lid and the box fit. So I'm thinking instead I'm going to do a small cup goblet piece because I've been really into goblets lately, because for some reason everybody that has me do a demo lately has been asking me to do goblets, which I don't generally do, but it's on my demo list. So everybody just recently has just been like, we want Rebecca DeGroot to do a goblet. And of course, if you ask me to do something, I'm going to want to put legs on it. So at the last last couple demos that I did, I stuck legs on them. If we have extra wood, we could maybe do something like that. But right now, we're just going to do a nice goblet, probably. Unless that changes from now until the end of the demo. How many of you actually did the challenge? How many of you did it twice? Oh. How many of you did it twice? Okay. I think subconsciously I left it at home on purpose because the walls of that box were so ridiculously thin that I wasn't entirely sure if it would make it here in one piece. But it looked really interesting, and I got to play with the beading tool, so maybe we'll be able to play a little bit with the beading tool. Easy Wood Tools' new beading tool. It's this lathe, so we're going to check to make sure everything is running properly. Thank you. Thank you. It's all good. It's all good. Okay. So I'm going to be using all Easy Wood tools tonight. And I'm going to start. Can you still hear me talking while I'm turning, even though it's real loud? Okay. I'm going to start just by truing up the blank. This is how I true up the blank. There are some people that go side to side. I prefer, when I'm at least knocking off these larger corners, to take big bites straight in across the way, then do the style of the back and forth when I'm truing everything up. Take off this last section, and then we are going to move the tool rest up. When you guys have seen my IRDs, my interactive remote demos, you got to hear my jokes, right? Anybody here that hasn't heard them yet? Oh, you've all heard my jokes? Oh my goodness. Oh, you guys are missing out. You ready for some of these? They're really bad. I do this during moments of extreme awkwardness, and that's pretty much all the time for me. So I'll tell you the first one that I start off with my students at the beginning of the year so they get a really good idea of what they're in for. Do you know how many tickles it takes to make an octopus laugh? 10 tickles. 10 tickles. It is. I mean, I will be. Oh God, I feel bad for James and Debbie. You guys have to deal with me for longer than everybody else. Oh my goodness.
Do you teach your students to turn?
I actually am not allowed to turn at the school. So we do have a wood shop space, and it's technically part of the robotics studio, but I'm not allowed to use it, which is really unfortunate because nobody else in the school knows how to use a lathe, and there's just 3 mid-sized jet lathes just sitting in the back, like dust-free, and I really want to be able to show them how to use it, but what you have to do in order to actually start teaching somebody how to use the machines in that area is you have to have the students show you how to use it. And then, it doesn't make any sense. Because the students are becoming certified in that area, and if they take a test, then they're certified over everything. But the teachers are not. It's a really strange setup. And it doesn't make any sense at all. So, yeah. It's a bit confusing. I'm currently working my way out of teaching though, so at some point it's going to be a little bit better for me personally, but right now I'm still in the teaching world and I still enjoy as much of it as I can. Huh? Do they teach me art? Some of them actually do, honestly. Like, there are some students that are so incredibly good at what they do that I'm just like, dang, why are you in my class? But for the most part, they have me with a very busy schedule. So they have me teaching Art 1, sculpture, ceramics, jewelry, AP 3D design, and painting. And they've only recently added painting to my schedule. It used to just be the 3D art classes and everything 2D, or everything, the 3D classes and Art 1, which learns everything. But they recently added painting to my schedule. And that was kind of a new thing for me. So I got to really explore how to teach students how to paint. Because, I know how to paint, but I don't really teach painting as a whole. So I've taken a lot of what I learned in the tattoo shop with the tattoo style of painting and the flash art that we learn in the tattoo shop, in the tattoo industry. And I've been applying a lot of that to the art room, and it's actually been really fun. So right now, my painting class is learning how to do gypsies, or I guess that's not really politically correct anymore, but they're learning how to do lady heads or male heads. And then I'm finding out that that's not politically correct anymore, so I have to call them human heads. So they're learning how to, they're learning, well, they are, but I have to be very specific or someone gets offended. I'm like, okay. So it's really interesting finding out what I can and can't say, honestly. But for the most part, how do I lock the spindle on this? Is there a button on the front? That's it. Never mind. I found it. Is there a set screw on this that's sticking right now? Because it's not locking all the way down. I know. He keeps sending me pictures and making me jealous. You see what I'm talking about? I mean, we can crank it all the way down just with the key. Let me just pull this away while I talk about these issues. You want me to do it? Because it's got us.
The last thread is rough on this spindle.
You think it's what?
It's been damaged on this.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
Is that why? Huh? No, they're threaded out.
Yeah, there's two and they're completely loose.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, are you okay if I just kind of like tighten it down like so? Because it's going. That's okay? Okay, I just didn't want to force it without asking. Okay. All right, we are good. So what I'm going to do is make a large kind of open-mouthed goblet, unless you really want me to make a box. Do you really want me to make a box? I don't want to make a box. No. Okay, because I feel like it's wasting a little bit of that figure when we lose that material. So I'm going to not do that, and I'm going to do what I want to do instead. Because when you already have 2 full-time jobs and this is your hobby, you can do whatever you want. Do you guys use Yorkshire grit? I brought some today. You use that too, Doug? Hey, I use Yorkshire grit, and I brought some, and if you guys have a tiny little baggie, I can give you some samples so that you can use it on one product and get really addicted to it and then buy some. Isn't that a great ploy? It is a microfine, or it's a fine abrasive paste for your wood turnings, or for other things as well. Sometimes I just use it as a buffing compound when I'm after I've carved something and put a finish on it. But it comes in 2 stages, which I'll show you once we get this to a nicer finish. It comes in the original wood turners abrasive paste and then the microfine abrasive paste, and this is really good for polishing like a CA finish if you want to do a CA finish. I use it on just about all of my pendants and other things, and then even sometimes after the fact, I might take it to the buffing wheel, but usually this is kind of like a 1-step system, or 2 steps if you're using the original and then the microfine. It's really nice. I'll show you. I'll show you how it looks. And it's going to make that grain pop really well. So this is my shape right now. I'm going to take that down to more of a round that I like the look of. And I'm going to be honest, Doug, don't be mad at me. Can't, no promises. I am a huge advocate for the hollower #1 with Easy Wood. I like to do a lot of the outside shaping with this tool. Don't be mad. You're not mad, are you? Okay. I really like it.
He doesn't care as long as you buy it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the hollower #1, obviously it's made to be a hollowing tool, but I like it as not a hollowing tool. I'm going to reset that point that's down there real quick. Oh my God, am I pushing it the wrong way? Thank you for your encouragement. I'm going to reset that real quick, and then we're going to true up the end a little bit, and then we're going to re-put that live center on there, just to make sure that it's setting nicely and not wobbling all over the place. Okay. That should be better. That is better. All right, so to get the most out of this grain, I'm going to try to keep the diameter of the top of the cup shape as wide as I can, and I'm going to make an uninterrupted curve, or as close to an uninterrupted curve, from the top all the way down, without, hopefully, without any flat surfaces or without any parallel walls. I want it to be a sweeping curve all the way down. But I just want to establish the basic shape first, and then I'll come back and I'll do the inside. But before I do all of the outside curve, I want to leave a lot of meat down here so that I can hollow with ease and I don't have to worry about any extra chatter from not having enough material in this base area. But I want to establish that shape first. And I want to know that as I'm looking kind of through this larger section of the wood, that I'll have enough for that to continue all the way down to kind of a point. And I saw in the rules, because I read them, that I'm going to use one extra piece of wood, that is allowed, as long as it's not the focal point. I did see that. So I'm going to use a piece of walnut to accent this and make the stem of my cup or my goblet. Do you know how a tree gets on the internet? It logs on. How a tree gets on the internet? It logs on. Do you know how it expands its social circles? It branches out. Do you know what type of wood celebrities turn? Hollywood. All right, so I'm just doing, again, a very simple kind of what I consider a graceful curve. And I'm trying to kind of eyeball it so that the base of this curve will end up somewhere around this middle section here. So I'm going to bring it down to a slightly smaller diameter here without going too small that I'm taking away that support that I want. And when I'm hollowing, I'm going to end up taking out a little bit less around the bottom area just in case I need to shape any of that or reshape any of it. And like I said, I don't want any parallel walls because I don't want the sides of the cup to come straight up. I want them to continue kind of flaring out as they go up. And it's looking like it's getting to that point now. And I think I brought my sandpaper so that we can really see how well this grain pops. That could be a really nice kind of goblet chalice shape on its own. but I don't want to just leave it like that. So I'm going to show you a couple different fun accessories today too. And I'm going to be able to hopefully show you some beading tools so that you can see how they work and what they do. While the tailstock is up, I'm going to take a little bit of this top surface off. And I'm going to start hollowing. I don't have to go too deep just yet. But you might as well get a little bit of that taken out while the tailstock's up, if you can. And then come in and get more of that off later after you remove that support. So, oh, we're good, right? Is this another one that's going to follow me? I don't think I like this guy. I'm watched enough in my classroom. So is it all you do is wave to it and it just follows your hand, or do you do other hand signals to it too? You can, how do you do that? You're just messing with me. All right, again, I'm taking out as much of this material as I can with the tailstock still up. I'm going to remove it pretty soon because now I'm running out of space to be able to move. But while the tailstock is up, again, I can start sanding the outside if I wanted to. But I'm going to show you one of my little attachments to this guy that'll make it a soft support on the inside later on. But until then, I'm just going to leave it alone, and I'm going to just continue working a little bit thinner here. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing okay. And sometimes, at least in my opinion, sometimes a simple, elegant form is a little bit better than a really complex piece, especially when you're working with figured wood. I like to keep kind of a simple form so as not to distract from the grain of the wood. And this kind of simple shape is going to let me do that. Okay, so I'm about ready to separate this piece. And I am that far in so far, about halfway down. So I'm going to remove this, get that out of the way at least partially, because you know the most dangerous piece of your lathe, right? You know what the most dangerous part is? Me? Who said that? The spinny part? No, it's that. The tailstock. The number of scars that I have on the back of my arm right here and like cuts that I've gotten from the point in the middle of the live center is ridiculous. I'm like, that's just shouldn't happen. But it does. And it will continue to happen, I'm sure of it. So while I am hollowing the inside, I want to be kind of like looking at it from this edge or from the tailstock end, because I want to be able to see where my cutter is in relation to the outside surface, so that hopefully I can follow the two and keep like a relative distance between the two, because you never want to make the inside bigger than the outside. You guys got that right? Okay. I'm going to part off that little cone in the middle. And now we're going to start with that bad haircut right at the bottom. You know what I'm talking about there? Yeah. Yeah, where it's like just a little bit more on that one side, and then you end up with a little divot, and then just a little bit more in the other direction, you end up with the point. It is my nemesis. We're going to remove that. What? Did we have a question about RPM? Was that my hyper hearing? It's 1750 right now. I was talking to Doug earlier when I was standing in the back, probably being too loud, that it's really warm in here. And it was freezing at the Oregon Symposium, so I told told a couple people that were like shivering next to me. I was like, you know where you need to go, right? They're like, where? I was like, to the corner. Let's see. Head of the tool. You know why you need to go to the corner if it's cold though, right? What is the diameter of this, Doug? This one's 3/8. Because it's usually about 90 degrees. This is the Easy Hollower number 1. I also have, for larger shoulders that I wasn't sure if I was going to do or not today, the Easy Hollower number 2. And, but wait, there's more. The Easy Hollower number 3. And these come in flat cutters or negative rake. Whoa. Deep hollowing with a nice deep shoulder. Not so deep of a shoulder. Straight cutting and outside cutting. These are really nice. Was that enough info?
So would you choose that one as just your
This one. If I had to get one hollower, I would get the straight hollower, because you can still do quite a bit of a shoulder with this because of that nice long neck on it and that taper at the end. But if you're going to end up doing a little, you're going to end up doing some like deep kind of shoulder cuts, I would get the 1 and the 3 so that you can kind of go back and forth between the two, because whatever the 3 doesn't get, you can usually get with the 1. But I like having the whole set just because there is a little less of an aggressive kind of curve, and it sometimes with the 3 it's just a little bit too much, and I don't need that much. And so with just a little less material hanging over the end, it's nice. But you have like, what is this, 4 inches? About a 4-inch overhang over the tool rest. And then with the other version, you have to actually overhang within a range. So this one, if we can go to the overhead again, there is a specific range. You don't want to have it on the skinny part here. Yeah, you don't want to have it on the skinny edge here or that smaller diameter here, because then it'll roll. You want to have it on this flat surface, but again, it does have an overhang maximum that you really should only go about that far, which I think is about the same distance. Close. Yeah, it's marked on here too. It's marked with a sticker though. Could get like, yeah, it comes from the manufacturer just like this. Where are they out of? Lexington still? Yeah. I still haven't been able to get out there yet. Yeah. All right, so there's a little bit more at the bottom that I want to take out, just to get that depth that I want in the bottom of the cup and to play with that bad haircut a little bit. But I'm feeling that the wall thickness is pretty good, and it's pretty consistent down to about this almost 2/3 in. So I just want to be mindful that I'm still following that wall and getting it to a point where I can feasibly get all the way to the bottom edge that I want to, or the bottom surface that I want to, and the depth that I want, without going through a wall and without going too deep that I won't be able to finish the bottom and finish the outside in the shape that I want, because there might be some more shaping on the outside after I'm done hollowing out the inside. So I just need to be mindful of that. So again, I'm kind of looking at it from the end just to make sure I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing and going where I need to be going. And now that I've got the tail stock or the live center out of the way, I don't have any risk of stabbing my elbow. Did you guys see my really nice bruise on my arm? Got a good one? Yeah. Huh? No, but you know what? I do follow a tattoo artist. It's the strangest style of tattooing that they do. She tattoos like cuts and bruises on people on purpose. Like on their knees and elbows and things to look like they're just like hardcore and doing all sorts of like stuff all the time and being active. So she tattoos like bruises on people. Like, why? Like I can get those on my own. But again, back to the Oregon Symposium, I got this while I was there. Because I was, as I normally am, pretty distracted as I'm walking around, and I'm looking all over the place at their nice venue, and I walk right into a parked car that's parked in the middle of the floor. Huh? Oh my God, no. But that would have been really funny. Only one person saw it happen too, so it wasn't too bad. But then I told everybody about it later, so. Okay. Do we have a light? Is there a light? There's no light. That's okay. Just on the off chance that there was. I was asking for a light so I could see inside. You don't mind that I take my face shield up for a second, do you? Is that okay? I'm awake. Okay. Oh. And it's like that catch never happened. Oh, and look at, hold on. I know. Well, now they are. They were going to be that thin anyways. Yes, thanks, Easy Wood Tools. You're so great. I love this. All right. So I'm just going to sand a little bit from 180 a little bit up. And sometimes if I'm feeling a little bit like this is too small of an opening, or if I just don't want to hold onto the sandpaper with my hand, or if I feel like it's being a little bit too aggressive, I'll hold the sandpaper with some forceps, which I brought with me. I like the sponge forceps because they end up holding it a little bit better and a wider hold, and then you don't have that hard kind of hook that you end up denting and scratching the piece with, because sometimes that happens. You just have to be mindful of that or careful that it doesn't happen like that. I like this way better than I like the box that I made last night. So it's a good thing I'm here. You guys are a good influence. I mean, I could, but now I'm out of the wood. So the reason I'm going to sand from 180 up to 320 is because I do want to show you the Yorkshire grit. And what you want to start with is that I generally start with Yorkshire grit at 320. You don't have to sand any higher than that, because what it'll generally do is if you start with the original Yorkshire grit abrasive paste, it'll bring your 320 up to, what is it, about 1,200? Yeah, 1,000 to 1,200. And then it'll bring that 1,200 up to, I don't remember what the next one is. Yeah, the microfine. It'll bring it up to about 2,000. And it will abrade the surface. And the longer you hold that abrasive paste onto the material that you're kind of buffing it and working it into, the more the particles in the abrasive paste will break down. And it'll continue to make the particles smaller, so it'll continue to sand it a little bit higher. Pretty much. Sometimes if you want to get like a really, really high polish on it, you can put a sanding sealer onto it first to kind of seal the pores of the wood, which I would have done if I had remembered and brought that with me, but I forgot. But it'll still give you a really nice finish without it. And it's mostly a wax base, is that right? Yeah, it's mostly wax base. So if you finish your pieces with wax, it'll end up being very similar to that. Okay, thank you for the air. I don't. I use it as kind of the last step. Yeah, it's not really. But you can continue buffing afterwards, but this will get it up to a higher buffed surface so that that kind of next step will be even better. Yeah, like another wax-based product would be okay. Hampshire sheen works really well. Thank you. And that brings it up to an even higher, like a gloss finish too. Yeah. Yeah. It's Martin Sabin Smith that sells that, right? Or that makes it? Okay. Okay, so I'm just moving up through the grits. I know this isn't very exciting right now, but I really want to show you that Yorkshire grit. So I'm trying to get all the way to the bottom without leaving any inconsistencies or any weird spots that aren't sanded. And I'm supporting it from the outside, and now that it's sanded, it's a little bit nicer to hold on the outside too. But again, I'm not pressing too aggressively hard because I have brought this down to a really thin wall thickness. So I just want to be aware of that. I will admit though, there's a little chunk that I took out that I can feel as it's spinning. So just ignore that when I put this up on display. We're going to put that on the inside of the front so that you don't see it. I'm going to find someone else to blame for that. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I love you guys. You guys are great. Okay, so it's up to that 320. Remember that I was still going to end up taking a little bit more of this material down and working my way toward the base. I am going to do that. I'm just going to re-sand it and return a little bit more of that later, but I want to do the inside and at least this top surface so that you can really see while we have this material support to kind of press on there to get that kind of buffing action in. And I did remember my extra rag. I was looking for that earlier and I was like, oh no. So I use like t-shirt rags and you don't need very much. And I generally just stick the rag back into the container when I'm done. And I'm going to do the inside and the outside. What you want to do is kind of hand wipe the Yorkshire grit on first. And I just kind of try to work it into the wood a little bit. And there's two reasons for this. Just to make sure that you get it fully saturating into the wood, or at least fully coating the surface of the wood first. But also, if you just put a bunch of it on and you start the lathe, what's going to happen? It's going to get all over. And it's going to spray all over the place, especially if you've got like a nice sharp edge on it. Ooh, that's pretty. So I want to just kind of work it in first. Make sure that it's fully coating everything. This is the Yorkshire grit. And it was originally manufactured by Glenn Sr. in Yorkshire, who is ridiculously difficult to understand if you ever get into a conversation with him. Oh my God. When he's sober, it's impossible. No, I just like, he'll start talking to me and I'll just be like, uh-huh. And he'll start laughing. He'll smack me on the shoulder. I was like, oh, I have no idea what we're laughing about, but you're funny. Oh, he's a funny guy. Is he coming back to AAW this year? Do you know? Okay. Okay. Are you guys going to AAW? The American Association of Woodturners National Symposium. Oh, you're new. Like new to turning? It is in Louisville. Got to say it right. Louisville. Louisville. All right. Yes, which coincidentally overlaps with my last 2 days of the school year. My last 2 days of the school year. So I'm going to skip the school year and go to AW. Yeah, generally it doesn't happen the last day of school. All right, so what I'm doing, I already buffed in and worked in that first grit, and I'm going to take a clean rag, kind of fold it into some pieces, make a breakaway grip, and I'm going to remove any excess particles of the first layer because I don't want any of those first particles kind of working their way into the second, the micro fine abrasive paste, because it could end up preventing it from getting to a high grit like I really want it to. But you can see that it's already bringing it up to a nice sheen, or hopefully you can see. And I almost said I was going to pause it. I'm going to stop the lathe. I'm going to pause the lathe so that you can see what just the first layer will give you. Ooh, ah. And then I'm going to move on to the second one, which I'm going to grab myself a new rag and leave myself enough that I'll have another clean rag to use to wipe this off. Yes. Yes, they are both wax based. And you can see, can you bring the overhead view again? You can see, where am I? That I don't use very much either of the times. I'm just taking a little kind of dab off on the edge of my cloth. And again, wiping it on. You don't need a ton. Just enough to kind of coat the surface and be able to work your way all the way into the material or all the way around. Maybe a little bit more. And even that's probably too much. But enough that you can kind of move the particles around while you're working with the lathe on to bring up a really nice high polish. And again, I'm starting kind of slow when I get started, and then I'm okay with heat when this is happening. Like heat and the friction is a good thing. That's what we actually want. So it's kind of melting everything down, breaking down those particles, getting everything down to a nice smooth finish. And then after you have it kind of worked into the surface a little bit more, what you can do is turn the lathe up to a higher speed and continue working. And like I said, it will continue kind of breaking down the particles and making it much shinier and more polished. And then when you take that clean rag and you wipe it off with nothing on the rag, it'll really make everything pop. And this one is still the Yorkshire grit, but it's the micro fine abrasive paste. So it's the next stage up. And like I said, this is what I use to polish my acrylic and my CA finishes, and it works really well. What I do to prep any CA or acrylic before I start this is like the same thing that I did with this. A sanding sealer would be great if it's like an acrylic hybrid or like wood and acrylic hybrid, putting a sanding sealer at least on the wood section so that it doesn't polish them kind of inconsistently. But then sanding it up to 320, and sometimes I'll take some 4/0 steel wool and I'll buff any scratches from the sandpaper out of the acrylic or the CA finish, and I'll usually just do that by hand, and then I'll move on to the Yorkshire grit. Okay. You can see it's a little bit dull right now, but once we start wiping that material off, it should start to come up to a high shine. 1491. Sorry, I don't know if everybody heard the question. The speed I'm running is 1491. No. I have not used it on a buffing wheel specifically, but sometimes if I feel like it maybe didn't get as high a shine, I'll take it straight to the last buffing wheel after I've kind of cleaned the surface, and I'll just go with, what's the last stage? It's the carnauba wax. Yeah, and I'll do just the carnauba wax over it, and I skip over the other two because this kind of takes it to that stage. Ooh. Ah, wow. And it's really soft. It's nice to touch. It's one of those things where you just kind of want to hold it in your hand and like just touch it. Which Yeah, there's lots of inappropriate jokes in the wood turning world, but I like to touch my wood as often as I can. Okay, so I'm gonna. I know I just did that whole process, and I'm gonna have to do it just a tiny little bit more of it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this down to a slightly smaller diameter, sand that last little bit up some more. But now you get to see kind of what I was talking about with that little addition to the tailstock that I hid from myself. Live center that I hid from myself. So this is a robust live center, and on the robust or the one way, I have this guy, which is from Rubber Chucky. You guys know about Rubber Chucky? If you've watched my demos, you probably do, because I talk about them a lot. This one's really nice. This is the Goblet Chucky, or one of the Goblet Chuckies. There's like, I don't know how many are in that set, but it has a soft hold at the bottom or the opening of a goblet, but I just bring it all the way down to the bottom, and I'll hold it right in the end. And that'll keep from chattering, and it'll keep me kind of consistent as I work into this area here. And then I don't have to worry about any chatter or my piece flying off of the lathe. But I shouldn't have to worry about that anyway. So I'm just going to do a little bit more shaping and get it down to a shape that I want. And I'm going to leave a small tenon at the bottom of it so that I have a centering point so that I can continue working and attaching the next piece to it. And I can make sure that that next piece is actually centered the way it should be. So I'm removing excess material, and I'm slowing the lathe down because I'm being too aggressive. That is one thing that I am not intentionally known for, is being a little bit too aggressive when I'm turning, but you can do that with these tools. And you don't have to worry about catches as much, unless you're stupid and you put the tool somewhere it doesn't belong. Okay, so I'm paying a lot of attention to this curve still, and I'm trying to work my way down so that it ends up kind of finishing at a good point so that I can transition from the actual goblet to the stem of the goblet, or the stem of the chalice, if I want to call it that. And also being mindful of how much material is still inside, and I might want to check that in just a second, just to kind of compare my idea of where it is to where it actually is. But what I want to do is, again, remove some of this excess material, get that out of the way so that I've got room to work. And sometimes I work with like a 1/3 to 2/3 ratio. This, like when I'm thinking about the base of something, in this spot, it is actually really close to a 1/3 to 2/3 ratio, because I'm looking at the diameter right there at the base from edge to edge, and it's close to an inch. And if this is actually a 3-inch piece, then that's actually getting pretty close. So I'm moderately happy with this. I'm just going to kind of refine that shape some and show you how quickly you can do that finishing set. And I'm going to switch tools, and right now I'm going to go into my detailer, which, Doug, do you know why I got this tool? This one, the micro detailer on the full-size handle. I did. I complained a whole lot until I got it too. So they only came on the tiny set before, with the handles only about this long, and I'm like, and you have to buy the whole set to be able to get this tool. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I want the sharp pointy tool on the bigger handle. And I think I kept telling you, and I kept telling Chris, and I talked to Chrissy about it. And I was like, why is this not in existence? I know I talked to Jim. And he made it happen for me. And then I got this. Wait, hold on. And then I got this. Made especially for Rebecca DeGroot. It should have said something about made especially for snarky, complaining Rebecca DeGroot. But, huh? I know. Like, somebody just make her shut up. But it worked. Moral of the story, complain about everything. Don't really do that. All right, so I've got kind of the bottom the way I want it and established how I want it. So I'm just going to take a little bit more and I'm going to sand it smooth so that I can transition from the finished surface into this non-finished surface. And we're going to do this really quick, just so that we don't waste any more of your time with sanding, because nobody wants to watch that. No, unless you do. Are you a fan of sanding? I mean, it's my favorite part of the piece because it means it's almost done. And it means that I get to make it look really pretty very fast. But the actual process, not a fan. And again, I'm leaving some extra material at the bottom just so that I don't have to worry about the piece breaking off. And again, because I'm pushing onto the side of the material, I'm leaving that tailstock support up, so that way I don't have to worry about anything being pushed off to the side either. I'm also checking with my hands, because you know that your hands are a lot more sensitive than your eyes when you're feeling for a shape or you're looking for a shape. So I do a lot of touching. Again, I do a lot of touching of my wood. And I get critiqued on this a lot when I post a video online, because you'll constantly see my finger come in and touch the piece. So I try to edit as many of those out as I can. But it's how I see my pieces, and it's how I see the curve is with my hand. So I'm not going to stop doing it. And the people that are complaining about me touching my pieces while the lathe is spinning can just go away. Do you guys do the same thing? Yeah, because you have to. And if you're not, then like, what are you doing? What now? Oh. Well, then it really helps you. So you're probably an advocate for that. I would hope so. There's I started following somebody who, I think he goes by the blind woodsman. It's not the blind wood turner. No. Somewhere in the States, I believe. But like, it's really interesting. I started following him on Instagram, but I think they have a YouTube channel too. And it's funny because it's him and his wife does crafts and things, and he does turning and other woodworking. And it's like his wife will go out to the shop and she'll just be like, okay, let's go see if it's a lights on or a lights off day today. And he'll just be out in the shop working in the pitch black. And she'll be like, okay, I guess it's a lights off day. But I mean, it's the same for him any day. So it's like, it doesn't make any difference. I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought about that. That is, I am so impressed by that. Like, and I do things while I'm not watching sometimes, but every time I do, I realize it, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? But I mean, as long as you can get kind of the feel for it, I guess it's good. Okay, I'm gonna stop the lathe before I bring the tool rest back up this time, just to make sure I don't end up smacking into anything I'm not supposed to. And I am gonna try to take off a little bit more of this sliver here, but I'm gonna do that with the square cutter. There we go. But I'm just going to bring it down to that larger tenon, and then I'm going to come back in with my detailer, because I only need about a 1/4 inch tenon on here. So about a 1/4 inch by a 1/4 inch, and then that'll give me enough of a glue surface that I can then attach the two pieces to each other. Now, when I first started doing transitions like this, I tried to bring the cup all the way down to a point, and then I tried to match the base that it would sit in into that negative of that cup. And I'm like, why on earth am I doing that? That is the dumbest decision I've ever made, because they never match up properly unless I have like a really nice gauge to kind of follow the angle. So I've just been doing a slight undercut on each of the surfaces, actually measuring the diameter of the piece, and then coming back in and giving it a tenon, and then drilling into the other end of whatever other piece I'm using. And I was like, this works way better, and it takes a lot less time and a lot less error. And I don't have to waste as much of the material, because I usually end up screwing it up. Okay. I didn't bring my calipers. But again, I'm really good at eyeballing stuff. Hold on. Drill bit. What now? I can't find it. I know I have 2 of them. They're at home and they're somewhere. So every time I do a demo, at least recently, it takes me a little while longer to unpack from it. And so as I'm unpacking, I'll unpack, and then I was like, okay, but I only need this stuff unpacked because I only need this stuff for this specific demo that's coming up. So I'll unpack that stuff, and then I'll set the other stuff to the side, and I was like, I'll take care of that later. And then I don't. So it ends up being a really fun activity of where did I hide my stuff, which usually it ends up in the lathe, in not the lathe room, but the storage room. And I'm going to pass this around so that you guys can see it. And then I'm going to start on the top. But I will need it back, so it might not make it all the way around right away, because I'm going to start working on the top section, and it might make it a little ways. But then once I have the top section, you can pass it around again, and then I'm going to steal it back again. Okay. Ooh, so soft. It's so soft. Like that, again, it's one of those shapes that you can just kind of feel, and the walls are really thin. Don't look for that spot, though. Just stop it. All right, so stop it. I'm going to go with a short base, just so as not to overwhelm kind of the height of the actual cup. So it's just going to be a small base with kind of a thin taper on it, and hopefully that'll be enough and it's not going to look awkward. Because what I'll like to do, generally speaking, is I'll, again, try to play with the 1/3, 2/3 ratio. So either this will be 1/3 of the height, or it will be 2/3 of the height. 2/3 of the height, I think, would take away from that piece. But if I feel like it's not looking exactly right, I can always just swap it out for a different one, because I just make the top and the hole the same size, and I can just like see which one looks better and see which one I like more. Because it's going to be so easy to turn this thing. And let's see, I don't think I want a tenon on it, because how long have I been turning already? Yeah. Do you guys know why elevator jokes are so funny? 'Cause they work on so many levels. Oh, I do too. I keep wondering to myself, am I crazy? Like, because if you've never completely abandoned an entire career before, it's really scary. And I've been teaching for the past 9 years in the district that I'm in right now, and at the school that I'm at too. I'm just going to swap that out because I can't find the little hole. And it's terrifying to start something new without really knowing what your real plan for the future is. But I'm hopeful that this combination of this and I don't need that one yet. This demonstrating, which thank you again, and the tattooing will kind of supplement each other, and I'll have more time to demo, which will be really cool, because I've always been so limited on time for demonstrations, as Doug knows, because it's almost impossible to get me anywhere lately. But having extra time to go all over the place and demo with my tattooing schedule, because I've got a very supportive mentor at the tattoo shop, and technically he says I'm not in my apprenticeship anymore, but I'm always going to feel like I am, because I'm always going to feel like a student. But like, I agreed to a 3-year commitment at the tattoo shop, And that 3-year commitment is partially learning, partially tattooing, partially like being responsible for keeping the shop clean and everything maintained and all of it. But now that I've been tattooing actually for a full year, and I'm getting to a point where I'm actually confident in my work, that like if somebody comes to me with a tattoo and they're like, can you do this? The answer is almost always yes at this point. I'm not as scared anymore. And it's actually it's getting to a point where it's really exciting. So I'm hopeful. I am very hopeful. So I'm just gonna true up the end here. I'm gonna undercut it again, and I'm gonna hopefully take it down to that diameter once I bring a tailstock back up that doesn't interfere with the piece. So again, I'm gonna transition into, where did it go? My hollower. And at the very least, because you've undercut the underside of the cup, you don't really need to undercut this piece or put any type of like concave into it, because there's already a concave on the other part. You can just put it flat and it should meet up. But just as an extra precaution, I'm gonna very slightly cup that in. And not so much that it takes away from the depth of the hole either. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to move it real quick. I'm not going to smack myself in the face. Where is my cup right now? Can we pass that forward real quick just so I can measure the diameter? Thank you. Thank you guys for keeping me safe. Okay. Thank you. What is happening right now? Okay. Oh, are we watching online too? Yes. Oh, okay. Hey, look at what that Yorkshire grit did. Did you see that? It left a really nice little wax mark right where the diameter of the piece ends. I knew there was another reason I had this. All right, before I continue passing this around, I just want to make sure that I've got that transition right. I am going to bring, I know now because I can see where it actually touched, because it was kind of undercut there. I know that that is right at the edge. So I'm going to bring the cone center up, not the other center. I'm going to bring that right up there, and I'm going to continue shaping a little bit more with the hollower just to kind of, well, not the hollower. I'm going to continue shaping with my square tool, my roughing tool. And we'll work on the shape a little bit, and we'll get down to a nice shape, and then I'll continue letting you guys see the piece. I'm just going to stay just shy of that finished diameter, because I want to kind of bring it out slightly from that in a detail that I'll be adding. Going to get this out of the way. And if you've never seen me demo before, and if you've never heard me talk about my favorite woods, walnut's my favorite for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons being that I got a lot of free walnut when everybody found out that I was starting to turn, and I kind of fell in love with it from just having so much access to it and being able to play with it and experiment with it and see what I can do with walnut. It ebonizes really well. So do my hands, apparently. And It is such a nice wood for carving. I just absolutely love it. Carving, and it actually sands well. And then when you're done sanding and kind of shaping, the grain still shows through. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to start shaping kind of the profile and leave this little excess bit, this like a little over 1/8 of an inch or so, outside of that ring. And I told you guys I was going to end up doing kind of a thinner base. And I should measure the height of the piece so that I can kind of actually gauge how tall it is and what a 1/3 to 2/3 ratio would be. I mean, it should be 3 inches tall, but I think I got a little extra out of it. I broke all the rules. So whenever I'm shaping a base like this, I want to also be mindful of the curve that I'm creating here. Do I want the curve to be kind of a high curve that has the kind of bottom of the cove higher up, kind of lifting it up onto kind of a taller pedestal, or do I want it to be a low curve, or do I want it right in the center? It all kind of depends on what you want your aesthetics to be when you're looking at the piece. If I have kind of this piece that has sort of a sweeping curve down the side here, I might not want it to have a really like aggressive curve when it comes tight down into a base. But I'm just going to check how it looks right now and see if I like the way that it looks. And from that, we're going to determine if I need to take off any more. Ooh, I kind of like that so far. I actually really like that so far. What do we think? It follows this curve, and that line right there being not super aggressively cut in, it kind of continues that line throughout, and then it makes the whole piece flare out as a whole. What do you guys think? That's pretty nice, right? Okay, so I'm going to try something, and we'll see how it works. And we're going to hope that it works really well. So I'm not going to sand it. I am going to take a couple finishing cuts, though, just to make sure that I am not leaving too much torn grain from me, again, just being way too aggressive. Because that's how I am sometimes. And I am going to bring the lathe speed up a bit. So it's up in the 1500 RPM range. Giving me some nice finishing cuts. Now, do we want to see the beading tool? You do. Do you want me to bead the whole thing? See how it works? Just a little bit, right? Okay, so I'm planning on doing maybe like 1 bead at the top, right where it meets the piece, and like 3 at the bottom. Sound good? Because I like odds and odds. I think they look nice together. But I'm just refining that curve a little bit more. And what you want to do is make your curve right to the shape that you want it to be. And then you can come in, and I think I've got this one set at it's got the number right on it. Look at that. That's great. It's the 3/16 bead. And I'm going to line this right, huh? Oh, hold on. It's right. Oh, wait. Oh, right there. Looks like that. That's a 3/16 inch bead that it's going to create. And the 2 wings come right up to point, so you don't have that weird space in between them that you might have with another beading tool. And you can bring beads right next to each other. I have to be really careful that I'm being mindful of where this thing ends. So I'm going to end it right where I want to end up at the top there. Now that didn't take my piece down to the diameter that I want, so I'm going to come at it from another angle too. And I'm just going to kind of play with it. And I might have to shape down the diameter a little bit of the overall piece, because I want at least the round over of the bead to end where that little circle is at the top. I kind of like the way that that looks. Is my head in the way? It's not, is it? Okay, good. Okay, kind of like the way that looks. Let me just double check to see if it's still the way I want it to be. And it pretty much is. So because there's just a little bit of flat there, but I don't want to take it down any further in the diameter, what I'm going to end up doing is sanding the rest of that bead over just to make it kind of curve over into that space. And I'm just going to do that with a little bit of the 220 that I brought, just so that I know that it's not going to have a weird flat spot right at the top. It's going to curve into that transition between the two pieces. And because now I know that I'm not going to end up beating the entire thing, my idea was voted against. I'm going to sand this a little bit. And I can use Yorkshire grit on this too. And I don't really need to sand any in that little V cut that it created, but I'm going to just to clean up the top of this edge where I might have torn it out slightly. But I'm going to put 3 beads right at the bottom so that you can see kind of sequential beads. Okay, so I'm going to sand this surface up nicely. And we're going to call that good. And starting from the outside edge, I'm going to go straight in where both points touch. Can you get the overhead view? Or maybe the overhead, yeah. So I'm going to start where both points are touching all at the same time, and I'm going to come in to make one complete bead, and I'm just going straight in. And then once I see that the bead is complete, I'm going to take out. And then I'm going to do the same thing right next to it so that this point ends up in the bottom of that first V to the right of my first bead down here, so that they end up right next to each other without any extra space in between each other. And then one more time. Only as far as I need to go until it completes the round for the bead. And then you've got 3 nice sequential beads. Then, now I'm going to take my hollower once more, and I'm just going to shape the rest of the bottom of this bead so that it creates a nice round base. And I'm going to undercut this in just a second, but we probably want some Yorkshire grit on this too, right? To make a nice finished piece that I can maybe even leave here with you guys. You guys are all going to have to message James afterwards and tell him that he missed out. Tell him that everyone was mad at him and that he shouldn't have gone to Ireland. Don't tell him that. Actually, no, do tell him that. Tell him I was really mad. Okay, I'm just going to sand it a little bit just to make sure that that Yorkshire grit does its job the way it should. And I'm also sanding around this bottom edge just a bit. And coming up with the 320. Before I end up finishing this, let me just double check to make sure I still actually like the way it looks. Because wouldn't it be awful if I like looked at it and I was like, oh, now that those beads are on there, it kind of looks terrible. That would be what I would do. Yeah.
The beading cutters that she's using on wood are also negative rate. They can be used for resins and acrylics, so you can check. They're negative rate, the beading cutters, so they won't chip and flake out your resin blanks when you're turning with those.
Do we need 2 more beads right at the top? What do you guys think? You think no? You just want me to be done. Okay, I think it looks nice. I think it looks nice. Okay, I'm thinking too much. Hmm?
So those feeding tools, they come with different size
Ooh,
cutters.
here, let me pass around the other cutters. I want these back. These are mine.
Yeah, so they do fit on our easy starts, our mid-size, and our mini roughers. So the handles will be different size, but the cutters will all be the same size, except for the concave. Those are going to come in 4 different sizes. It'll be 1/8 inch, 3/16, 1/4 inch, and 3/8. So you can make a fat bead, a real small skinny bead, or in between. So they do come in 4 different sizes. Some are putting them together on Amazon as sets, but we sell them individually. So you can get them. I think Taylor Tools has been throwing them out there for, and I think Spidercraft too, if you guys know Bradley McAllister, he's putting 4-packs together. So you can get them as a 4-peat.
Some people do want to, just to get that seal on it, so it doesn't soak in, like whatever, you might put something liquid in it, or something that's gonna have some moisture, you'll still wanna put a finish on it. What do you recommend? Rebecca, I think you were saying you use,
I use a sanding sealer under it. So instead of putting another finish on top, it's just a shellac and denatured alcohol cut 50-50, and it'll seal the wood and it'll finish it, but then this will bring it up to a really nice high shine. And put that... Sometimes I'll go with the last stage of my Beal buffing system, and that's just the Carnauba wax. Yeah. Yeah.
I believe they're $30.99, so $31. They'll last.
I do, like a traditional roughing gouge. Yeah, yeah. Like I'm what they call a hybrid turner. So I will turn using every single one of my tools except for the skew. I just watched Eric Lofstrom and I shared a demo room this weekend, and like he was teaching skew techniques, and it made me almost want to break out my skew. But for the most part, I'll use kind of an even distribution of like easy wood and traditional tools. And it's so funny because like as what I am now becoming as a professional demonstrator, it's like I'll sit down with like the likes of Stu Batty and I'll tell him that I'm using easy wood tools, and he's just like, oh, and I was like, just stop. Huh? It's not. And so many like turners, that's how they're learning. And if they didn't have it, they wouldn't have otherwise started. And they just keep it in their arsenal, and that's what I do. So I know that every tool has its function, and I know that with some tools I'm better than with other tools. And so I just continue using whatever I think works best for me and my purposes. Yeah. Like I use the hollowing tool and the micro detailer all the time, like all the time. But like the roughing tool, the square rougher that we've got, like I don't really use that one as often, but now I'm glad that I don't, because I can put all the beading tools on it. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing and what the purposes are of the cuts that you're trying to make. Okay, so I'm just trying to clean out the bottoms of the beads so that I can make sure that everything looks nice and beautiful and ready for the ooh-ah moment. And you know what's going to happen as soon as I post like any picture of this? You know what the first like probably 40 comments are going to be? No. They're going to be like, you should make a chess set. Where the butt You are correct. Well, if it's James anyways. So again, with the undercuts, I want to make sure that the edge of the base is the lowest part and the rest of it is kind of undercut in or at least angled up toward the center so that I don't have to worry about it wobbling on me. And I think I've achieved that. So I'm going to come back in with my micro detailer, especially made for Rebecca DeGroot. And I'm going to bring that in. And I can see that my tailstock isn't even doing it's not even doing anything anymore other than squeaking at me, so we're just going to remove that. And if I wanted to, I could still sand this and get it down to a really nice high polish as well, but I think you guys are done watching me sand, right? Sure. I passed. Oh God, is there a nub right at the bottom? Don't pay any attention to that. Oh, wait. Ta-da! Wow! Ooh. Yay! Again, I would have taken a little bit more time before parting it off, sanded more around the bottom, finished around the bottom, and then I would have had that little piece that I would have had to part off later that I would have just kind of like hand sanded or carved away with like a burr. I've seen some people take a sphere burr and just like burn right into the bottom of it with a carving burr, and it gives it that little like radial pattern right there in the center. Greg Gallegos does that with his podlets that he makes, and it ends up being kind of a nice feature added right at the end, but I don't generally like flip it around and finish it. I just kind of leave it slightly rough sometimes. If I'm being really picky, it's got a hole. I could essentially take this excess piece of material down, fit it to the inside of the hole, stick it on there, tape this to the rest of the block, and finish it all the way off if I wanted to. But I don't. I'm not going to do that today. Yeah. Reverse chuck. Reverse chucking is like my friend. Okay. Any questions?
How durable is that finish with age? 10 years from now, will it still be looking like that?
It might dull a little bit over time, but I mean, it's just like any wax finish. You might want to reapply it after like several years if you want to bring up that high polish or just buff it again. But it's going to depend on kind of how much it's handled as well. Like sometimes handling will actually add to the finish and add to the patina of it. Other times it might dull it back down. So you might just want to take a little bit extra, put it back on there, and then buff it out. But I mean, I don't know that I haven't been using Yorkshire grit for 10 years. I don't know. I don't even know if it's been around for that long. Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that this will do is it'll dull. It won't crack because it's not going to end up being a hard finish. It's a finish that saturates into the wood and just buffs what's already there. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? You guys have been great tolerating my jokes. Giving me lots of good feedback. And I have a couple videos online. I never post anymore because I don't have time. But every once in a while, I'll do like no. No, not at all. There are. I actually just found out that I've got paid $200 from Instagram. Like, I had no idea, but it's because, how many of you have Instagram? I'm technically considered an influencer. It's really strange. Like, I had this random, like, $100 show up in my PayPal, and I'm like, where is this from? And it said, like, something like Meta something or other, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm thinking that it's just somebody's transfer for a tattoo or something. And I'm like, okay, didn't think much of it until I go into like the fine details just accidentally of my Instagram account, seeing what's going on like in the background. And it said like 2 charges or 2 like deposits for $100. And I was like, wait a second. So I go back into my bank account. I'm like, what? Because there's an option that you can select where you can get paid for certain reels that you post if it gets a certain number of views. And I had one that has got like 6 million views. And I was like, oh my God, this has never happened. Yeah. I will show you. CA glue. No. The question was, do I always use activator with my CA glue? No, I don't. But when I do use activator, this is another promotional thing. I don't like the stick fast unless I really need it to be fast. I love the stick fast brand glue, but I don't like the smell of the activator. It gives me a headache. And it smells terrible. It's like you're just breathing toxic fumes, which you are. And it melts my nail polish. And then I get my nail polish all over my clothes if I'm not paying attention. So I use the Bob Smith Industries brand accelerator because it kind of smells perfumey in a way. It doesn't smell really chemically or gross like the other activators do. It's called Bob Smith Industries. You can get it at Amazon or Hobby Lobby. And it comes in this little set. And 3 things that I like about it. It has a pump sprayer, not the aerosol can. It has, it smells a lot better, and it doesn't blush the CA. So it doesn't make it bloom or turn white or like foam. So this is really nice. I use it when I do CA finishes. So if I'm doing a CA finish, I can wipe on like 2 layers of CA and almost instantly put this on, and then almost instantly put on another like couple layers of CA. And it doesn't affect it at all. Where I'm attaching it? So, yeah, it's just a very slight undercut on each one. Just enough that it's not flat. Like, barely. Barely. But then when they match up, they meet only on the edge. So it ends up being a really nice seam. And that eyeball fit tenon was pretty close, I think. What I will say, though, is I left a nub on the bottom, so it does have a little bit of a wobble. But it might just be that center point. I don't know. If we just set it on something with a hole, nobody will ever know. Yeah. Ta-da. Where's the figure? There we go. Ta-da. Yeah, just pin everything onto the surface that you're going to set it into. Or cover it in spikes, and then no one will ever want to touch it. Yes, pegboard dining table. Here, let me stand in front of it so you can see it better. With my really cool shirt, too. Ooh. Any questions? Are you guys going to do show and tell now? What happens next? What happens after I leave on a regular demo? Oh, okay. I want to see. I get to see the whole thing this time. This is exciting. How many times have I demoed for your club? 2, 3? Is this my okay, was this the club that I did that 4-hour walking teapot demo? I was talking about that this weekend too, and everybody's eyes just went like, 4 hours? I was like, yeah, I think I broke a couple records. but I was very thorough. I think this is 4 if that was, yeah. 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 Okay.
Everything's back there.
I like it.
So if anybody that didn't get to see what people brought, it's back there on those tables, so please go look.
Yeah. I'm going to glue these together unless anybody wants to see them unglued. You guys want to see them unglued? Or glue them together? I'm going to assemble it. And the only part I really want to glue is just that tenon. And I'm going to set that to the side. And I'm going to kind of mask off with my hand where I'm spraying so that I'm only spraying on the top and not all over the rest of the surface. And then I'm going to match the grain. I'm going to figure out which one I like the look of more. And I'm going to question myself whether or not I actually matched the grain. I think I did. Does anybody have a knife? Yeah. There's just that little pin right at the bottom that's driving me crazy, and I think that's what's making it wobble. Thank you, sir. Hold on. Oh. Oh, this is a nice sharp knife too. Oh, I can trim this whole thing. What?